Hello, this is Professor Kim Nelson with the Jewelry Design Department of the Fashion Institute of Technology, continuing our series of tutorials for JD 138 Basic Rhino. Coming back to our 1 carat setting, we have the prongs complete. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the under bezel and the gallery wire. In class, I went through a more detailed process of how to go about this that closely mimicked the way this would be done by hand. Here I'm going to show you a more direct way and how it would be normally done in a CAD application. First thing I'm going to do is bring back the 45 C-plane. I did that by hitting Enter. Could have also pulled that from the the C-plane menu on the viewport right here, and picked 45 there. That would have worked just as well. I need a cross section of my prong and my stone and how they meet and relate. To do that, I'm going to create a planar surface. Just a plane right here, surface from 3 or 4 corner points. Just going to drag a surface that completely captures my geometry. Going to go to Curve Tools, Curve from Objects, pop out at the end, Object Intersection. Going to pick, okay, going to pick the stone, going to pick the surface, going to pick that prong wire, and hit Enter. Okay. I can now delete the surface, and I can turn off the prong, and I can turn off the stone. Now we know this prong is 9/10. We want to have a similar diameter wire for our under bezel. So I'm going to create a 0.9 millimeter diameter circle. I'll just do it at the grid intersection. It doesn't really matter where I create it as long as it's on this C-plane. And I'm going to move this into position so that it bites well into the prong and at least touches the pavilion of my stone. Deleted that extra curve. It's also imperative, as you'll recall, I'm going to do this from both sides, start this line from the girdle, that the under bezel does not extend beyond the girdle of my stone. So that's a good place for it for now. I'm going to come back into the top C-plane, and I'm going to draw a 45-degree curve. Corner to corner will give me that 45-degree. Sorry. And Enter will bring back my name C-plane. Okay. I want this copy of this to rest right on the ground here, so I'll do that by going Transform, Copy, take a hold of the quadrant, and snap to the end of my line. So I know that's the elevation for my gallery wire, and I'll slide it in so that it has a similar relationship with both the prong wire and the inside edge of that prong as my under bezel does. The way I'm going to create these wires is I'm going to use a revolve command with history. So I'm going to record history, Surface tab, Revolve. Start of revolve axis, I'm going to go ahead and pick on the culet in this section. I'm going to hold my Shift key, to pull straight up to give a revolve axis. That's the axis this will rotate around. And start angle 0, revolution angle 360 degrees. Put that on a different color layer so I can keep a difference between my revolves and the curves they came off of. Going to record history again, revolve again, cue it, pull straight up, enter, enter. So I have a reasonably good contact with my prong, and it will function as a seat, and it is just about a third down. It's actually in a good location. But I would like to have more bite into the prong than I have. I'm going to grab the section here for the gallery wire. I'm holding down Shift. Move from, I can click anywhere. Hold Shift to constrain my direction. And my rail will update. I would like to have that rail. That's actually pretty good. I don't want to come too much into the rounded portion of that prong. That's about right. Turn off the blue layer. And I can see how this relates to the center prong wire. And I want a similar relationship here. I would also like this to have more of a seat for my stone. So I'm going to allow the under bezel to have an elliptical cross section. Going to do a non-uniform scale. From the center. And this is the direction I would like it to go. So I'll pull it out to where it's just about even with the center line. Y-axis is fine, so type in a 1 or hit enter to accept and enter again. You will see when I turn back on the blue layer that the cross section, since there's history attached, automatically updated the wire. Go back to top C-plane. And that will, for all intents and purposes, complete the prong setting. To go beyond this, I'm going to need to break history. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Before I break history, I'm going to actually I'll turn off my surfaces first. Bring back my curves. The only curves here that have history attached are these for the prong, and also the cross sections of the prong. Not sure where they went to. Right there. So these and these I will group together, and I will put them on a storage curves layer. And the surfaces they control I'm going to copy those out of Rhino for now, Control C or Edit Copy. Then I'm going to group these, and Control D to change layer, or you can get it off the Edit menu, to place these on a Storage Objects layer. The rest of these curves are no longer important to me, nor really is this point. I'm going to Edit Paste to bring those surfaces back in. And now I can go ahead and finish out my setting. I'm going to cap planar holes for all of my prong wires. For this setting, which is the flat setting, I need to trim off the prongs. So I go to my front C-plane so I can look straight at it. Surface tab, cutting plane, start of cut plane, 0. Use Shift key to pull straight out. Enter when done. Check the direction. We're going to use this as a Boolean cutting tool. It is pointing the wrong way. We want it to point towards the prongs because that's what we want to keep. So I'll click on Flip and enter. Pick my 4 prongs. Solid difference to subtract width, this surface, enter. And I'm going to go ahead and do a solid union. For these prongs and the gallery wire. It's important that you've left a copy of this uncapped or unbooleaned in your file, because once I make this setting, this is not useful for a ring, and that's what we're going to be using this for. So you can go ahead and boolean this out and finish it as a project, but in reality you're not going to want those prongs cropped like that for a ring. I'm going to go ahead and cut my setting. I'll do an intersection. Curve from objects pop out from the Curves tab. Object intersection right there. Going to do an extract isoparm. And I will snap to the farthest out point. Now, if you've already brooded your stone, you wouldn't have a facet like that. You'd have a smooth circle. But for our purposes, this is fine. And, as you'll recall from class, I'm also going to do a straight vertical line using the front C-plane. Start of line 0. And pull it straight up to the next grid, or as far as you want. Actually, it's more important to have it going down below, so make sure you have a sufficient amount of reference geometry going down. Back into front C-plane so we can see things on a vertical C-plane. Going to extrude to a point. Now I had pre-selected that. If I hadn't pre-selected the geometry, it would ask curves to extrude, and then I would pick my curve. Enter when done. Going to use the near snap to do like a trombone slide on this curve. To get something like that, to where the pavilion just starts to show through. Turn off my stone, and as I did in class, since I want this to be an effective cutting Boolean tool, I'm going to extend this surface so I don't have this perfect tangency between the two, because Rhino does not like coincidental surfacing when it comes to a Boolean. Extend surface, select edge, and 0.5 is fine. Check the direction of this since we're going to use it as a Boolean cutter. And that is pointing the correct direction. So solid, difference, done. Can select and discard all of the curves. That should provide a very nice seat for our stone. Which we can now union with a solid union command with our outside prongs. And there. Could draw a more delicate setting still, but I wouldn't recommend it after casting and shrinkage. That would be a nicely functioning setting. Okay. The only thing I might do to make it more attractive still would be to and this is optional. Extract these points. These surfaces that form the points of the prongs. Delete. And then I could come back in, surface, edit tools on trim, and click on the end of that and it doesn't want to let me. I was afraid that it might be difficult. I can extract this surface. And then I can do an untrim. I want it to keep the trim objects in this case, so I'll click keep trim objects equals yes. Enter when done. So now I have a series of curves. Bring back my object. I'm going to extract an isoparm. Using an end snap. So I can cut these trim curves to the shape and size that I want. Trim. Rhino has made duplicate geometry, so we will delete. Oh, except for there. There's a little cleanup involved here. Like I said, this is optional anyway. What I want is a single copy of these four curves. If I had just one of them, I could have arrayed it around. For the same result. Okay, having these curves, going to use them to trim. The circle, the extracted isocurve. Going to join those together into, it says one of them is open. I'm going to guess it's that one that's open. So just to make sure they're all good, I'm going to ask Rhino what that is by typing in what. Closed polycurve. Good. And that I will array. Bring back my surface and trim using those curves. The shame is I trimmed away the wrong part. I apologize. So this, join this together, array polar, and once again trim. And then join that back on. Gives a little more finished result. Okay, that's it. That's the completed setting. And like I said, trimming off those little corner bumps was optional. It does make a nice finish underneath, but it's optional. All right. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in class next week.